Hello, Guardians. Welcome back to Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast. I am one of your hosts, Corey Derrigan. Alongside me, as always, is my conductor, Josh Finney.
Ooh. I'm a conductor now. Do I get a wand? Yeah. Do they call it a wand? Is it a baton? Or is it a wand? What is it?
I think it's a conductor stick. You know,
a stick. I think okay, we're gonna call it a conductor twig.
A staff?
Twig. No,
it's not long enough. It's not long enough to be a staff.
I mean, a staff, you would be like epic and grand. With this, I feel like I'm gonna poke somebody in the eye.
To be fair, Josh, you're epic and grand in my heart.
True. I am.
In my heart.
It's true.
And in the Tower Casuals' hearts.
It's true.
It's true. Josh, I feel like I've only seen you like 3 times in the last year. It feels like.
It has been, man, ever since the final shape came out, we've kind of been like just sprinting, and I feel like really haven't slowed up. This is like the first week that I feel like, not just in terms of like content, but in terms of like my personal life, that I've like slowed down in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like even in terms of the show, it was funny. Last week I was like, oh man, even though it's the beginning of a new act, I was like, this is like the first time that I feel like I've gotten to take a breather in terms of content since like really Into the Light dropped. And even you can even go back further into the streams that started in like March. It has been just a like 4-month sprint over here.
Yeah.
And man, I am really, really, really happy that episode Echoes kind of blows because holy shit, I needed to be able to step away. I want to just launch right on into Echoes right now.
Yeah, it's
I know we've opened the last couple episodes like this, but man, I was trying to reserve my judgment until we got all the battlegrounds. I
don't think you have to.
I think we have a big enough sample size now. We're halfway through the episode as of next week. We'll be 9 weeks into an 18-week episode, and keep in mind that means there's 3 weeks of story remaining at that point.
Yeah.
I feel like we have done nothing in terms of story. There's a nice little side story with Osiris and Saint and like Failsafe feeling left out of all of our exploits throughout the years, but there's not really like the meat and potatoes that we come to a Destiny story for.
Yeah.
This is episodes at this point. I said we were going to have this I said this last week when it was just me that I wanted to have this conversation when you got back. Episodes are just fancier seasons.
Are they fancier seasons? Or are they?
I do think they're fancier. Here, let me make my case to you. What we may be lacking currently, and I've said that I'm willing to overlook the badness of the story right now, like the non-stakes of the story, because this is the same time when the final shape released, and that's very clearly all the effort went into that and Into the Light,
right?
And that's fine. The season, and I'm gonna keep calling them seasons. I keep forgetting to call them episodes. The season that accompanies the expansion usually is almost always underbaked. And with the very notable exception of Risen.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is where I come into it, because I think a lot of us are like, oh my God, the season's bad because there's no story. And like, that's kind of where I'm coming from, because I think when I think about everything else, I think about the weapon suite, I think about the activities. I actually really like this season when I think about those two things. I think the amount of new weapons we're getting in this season is kind of wild. We're going to end the season with 10 craftable brand new weapons and 5 reprised weapons, I believe, ultimately. Mm-hmm. That's pretty great. Along with, when we get the exotic mission next season, or next act. God, next fucking acts. If anything, I think my biggest gripe, and I'm really happy they're going to make a change to this with Revenant, is dropping all the story at once, like I kind of complained about it a few weeks ago. Now I'm like, fuck it, just drop it all at once. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, you will see your numbers dip. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're going to see those engagement numbers dip if you're Bungie, and that's probably going to cause you to not do this again. But like, what are we really gaining right now by logging in every week? Like, we're not. I feel like we have all now reached the point in a normal season we'd be 3, maybe 4 weeks out from a new one dropping. Instead, we're 3 or 4 weeks out from Act 3 dropping with an exotic quest for the activity, with 2 new craftable weapons, with another reprised weapon. Like, I feel okay when I think about it that way. Because let me tell you something, I'm kind of tired of doing breach executable. As much as I enjoy it, that is the minute you are done with your red borders, though, like with the majority of them, that activity becomes completely useless to you. If you're there grinding for gear, once you have hit all your red borders and once you have hit 2,000 across the board with all your gear, I feel like that kind of loses its luster. And they've clearly structured this episode to where, okay, those first 6 weeks, that first act, they really wanted you to focus on that and on Enigma Protocol. They wanted you to focus on those. This act, they want you to focus on Battlegrounds, and then next act, it pretty clearly seems like it's going to be built around the exotic mission for the final 6 weeks. That's cool and all. Like, I actually appreciate that we're getting a new activity every 6 weeks, it seems. And if they keep this cadence, that's great, because we all get tired of these activities after about 4 or 5 weeks. So on that hand, I think it's been a success. We've done the activities just enough that we're starting to get annoyed with them. Like, I need to go do some more Enigma Protocol to finish up some triumphs for the seal, but I'm kind of at a point where I don't care. I usually try to get all the seasonal titles, and it's funny. We finally get a Vex themed one, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't really care. Like, and there's not even anything else like really to play right now either, which is like the saving grace I think Destiny has going for it is if you want to go play the first Descendant, that's your prerogative. Like, if you're in the Final Fantasy 14, you've got Dawn Trail, we had Shatter of the Erdtree. There's like, for me personally, there's really like nothing else to play right now. I'm kind of going into my backlog. And it's unfortunate because the first game that I've wanted to play like all summer that's not Destiny as a new release comes out like 3 days before Act 3 drops, and that's Star Wars Outlaws. It's like, oh, great. So, like, other games are getting pushed back and aren't going to come out till the fall season now, which is during, and funny enough, we kind of talked about this, that this is kind of a good strategy for them to drop all that story at once, realizing, okay, people probably are going to dip because of other games. Let's at least get all the story out there. The season feels really disjointed. I think the Battlegrounds are fine. I like that they tell a connected story, but I hate that you have to get all the way through the third one to like even get a hint of what that story is.
You said it though, right? It's fine. It's all fine.
It's not fine. It's like very 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
And that's not bad. It's just, it's very middle of the road. It's very much like what we've come to expect from, seasons. If anything, I think that there are some good things that they should be praised for. The loot cadence is outstanding.
Yes.
When you play Enigma Protocol, you get drowned in loot, especially if you do the expert one, which, by the way, there's no darkness zone. So if you're of level and you can go in with it's match made, but you're going to fare better if you go in with people that you know. And you can finish those like mini sections before the timer runs out, and you get timer extenders and stuff. If you can finish that, that means you get access to 3 chests at the end, plus you get to dunk your radiolite. I was coming away with like 20 pieces of gear every run.
Yeah.
I think Johnny and I had every single weapon for the first 6 weapons. I think we had them all crafted by like week 2 of the season, which is really week 3 overall. But that was awesome.
Yeah.
I am a person who likes to make things look fancy, so like I personally really love chasing the plants and trying to get those rare 400 samples to have more to add to my terrarium. I think that's a lot of fun, but like that, the weapons are all like I think genuinely like good or great.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of S tier weapons already, namely the fucking sidearm is absolutely like goated.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the activities like are fine. Like they've changed up some not like changed up mechanics, but they've taken some mechanics from other things. Like when you do an Enigma Protocol, some of the mechanics are taken out of Excalibur, for example.
Yeah.
Um, I like that, and I like that there feels like there's a real challenge when you do that on Legend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of like when we would do Coil, but I think the loot is more rewarding and in a much quicker time than Coil ever was.
Mm-hmm.
Like a third of the time for just as much, if not more, loot from doing a full Coil run on like challenge mode.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Like we have to acknowledge the good, but also acknowledge just like, damn, I would have like rather honestly, like this is gonna be really selfish of me. I would have rather had like 2 strikes versus 3 battlegrounds. I think it's downright fucking criminal that Nessus looks beautiful in these missions, and that's gonna go away.
Yeah.
Nessus looks cool for like the first time ever. And like I've talked to a few people about this, and I've seen some theories going around on it also. It is speculated that Nessus is like integral to the base Destiny 2 code, and that's part of the reason why Nessus is the planet that has never been sunset.
Yeah.
Along with the EDZ, that just like they're so core to like they were the earliest things made for D2. Like they were probably scrapped from D1 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the earliest things made. So I don't know how much of a I mean, you would have to change all of Nessus. There are some terraformed sections, which I think those will stay. But
Mm-hmm.
like, man, the cistern is like a cool area for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And that's going to go away, unfortunately. Like, it's a bum. It is a genuine bummer that we see the world change like this. Like, this feels like it's finally fulfilling the promise we were going to get about the world changing and like always evolving and stuff. And like, oh, this is the first thing we've done with Nessus since dropping a fucking tank on it. And, well, can't have nice things anymore.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I think that the first 2 battlegrounds, I said it last week, they're fine. They're fine. There's not real. The story is you're trying to get to the center of Nessus. Oh boy. Oh boy. I would have honestly, I think that would have made for a kick-ass dungeon. But you get to this final battleground, and it's so funny because it's so reminiscent of the Pyramidion at first, and then of it's almost exactly the fight against the Vexmind from the Infinite Forest from the old Mercury Strike.
Jeez.
This thing shoots fucking Nova bombs at you, but instead of damaging you, they slow you. And let me tell you something, even playing those in playlist, you are fucked if you get hit by that.
Yeah.
And you don't have teammates that are paying attention. Or your teammates that are not paying attention, I guess I should say. It's massively frustrating, but then I think that's going to be a cool challenge on GM. I was talking to John about it. There's things in there. They're almost certainly going to use this for other things, like maybe for the exotic mission, maybe for, some story missions going forward. Like they're going to use this area again. There's some Vex teleporter paths, and there's pretty clearly some areas that like I presently can't get to, but you probably could if you well skated or sword skated over there.
Mm-hmm.
I think like all that's cool, but like you have to get all the way to the end of the final battleground to like get a hint of what the story is, and it's like, oh well, can't do that. And it's like, what can you guys do then? Like, we've now taken 5 weeks of quote unquote story for me to see Saint basically have an identity crisis and Failsafe feel left out of the last 5 expansions. It's like about it. That's the ground that we've covered ultimately.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it overshadows the fact that I think the loot's been great. I think that, I think the armor set is a choice, but it's not bad. It's like Vex Shinobi, which is kind of cool. It's and like if the exotic is good, like it's going to get overshadowed by just how mid this is. And like I'm having horrible flashbacks to Season of the Undying.
Yeah.
And how like it was so dumb the whole way through. Like, again, we were like, oh, this activity's, kind of Vex offensive. Like, it's our first time getting arena based ones. We're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, we're kind of like, we're getting a decent amount of loot over here. Just the loot kind of sucks. And we ultimately didn't really do anything. Like, I know we killed the Undying Mind in it, but it's like, oh, that would have been a great opportunity to bring back the Undying Mind Strike. Like, there are plenty of things that we could do here, and instead we're doing none of it. So
I thought they were bringing that back at some point.
No, they're bringing back.
They're bringing back Inverted Spire.
Yeah, Inverted Spire. It's hard to keep track of all the no-name Vex strikes, but I just find
silly
myself
me
like, and I think we finally got an interesting nugget at the end of this week's story where they basically say we're going to have to go back to the Infinite Forest, which is kind of a cool idea. We haven't been back to Mercury since we lost it at the beginning of Beyond Light.
Yeah.
Like that, or was it Beyond Light, or I don't even remember the timetable anymore.
Was
when they pulled it out.
It was Beyond Light.
It was Beyond Light. Yeah, because that's when they Yeah. It was Beyond Light.
Yeah.
I just find myself really annoyed because it's like, oh, well, that's cool. Like, that's the first little nugget that we've gotten. And like, I can't help but feel it's going to be like a 5-minute mission and that's it. This would be a Vex season is a great opportunity to bring back Mercury and make it the way you always wanted it to be.
Yep.
To use the Infinite Forest, to use maybe the Corridors of Time again. Like, there's so many things we could be doing with the Vex that aren't just, oh, here's the Black Garden, and we're kind of falling flat on it.
Yeah.
I'm really bummed out that in a Vex season, in these battlegrounds, I want to be really clear. We fight Fallen. We fight Vex. We fight Cabal. And we fight Taken. And no explanation is given to why the Taken are there. Nothing. In this last battleground. If there was an explanation given, I've run this thing 3 times. If there's an explanation given, I missed it. And I just find myself increasingly aggravated.
It's yeah.
It's a choice.
It's something.
Also, it's striking how many people don't understand that you're supposed to, when you get little Taken blights, you're supposed to throw them at the big blights. I thought
what?
Oh, dude! I the very first time I ran this, people were the 2 randos that were in my fire team were picking them up and throwing them at enemies.
Jeez.
I'm like, did you guys? Did anybody here play Defiance? Let alone like 15 other activities that have asked us to do this over the years.
Right.
It's one thing after another, and like I'm trying to stay optimistic because. Again, I feel like we get the next episode, and we know that we've got 2 dungeons coming, and there's only 2 episodes to go after this for the year. Okay, that solves the question of when we're getting those dungeons. They're going to be at some point in those episodes. With the new storytelling structure, you can kind of drop them whenever you want. Like, I would not drop them at the beginning of an episode anymore.
Yeah.
I would drop them whenever there's a particularly cool story beat. Or it could even be like, hey, we're going to drop this we're going to drop this, and it's going to serve as the conclusion to the storyline for this episode. That would be so cool. Like, a long-standing villain like Fickrell should be taken down in a dungeon or in a raid.
Yeah.
And not in a story mission.
Yeah, that definitely should be like a dungeon type thing.
So, and on top of that, you've got a reprised raid that has to be slid in at some point, assuming they keep that. We're just assuming that we're still going to get a reprised raid, but assuming that we do, like, okay, when do they drop that? Like, I know there's been some scuttlebutt on the internet. The way that information was found out was not cool. So, like, not going to go into it, but The reprised raid that's rumored, not super jazzed about that one either. Like,
Great.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. I haven't been looking for that.
It's not Wrath of the Machine, I'll tell you that. If it's real, it's not Wrath. And that's a bummer to me. I understand that would be introducing a whole new group of Fallen just for one raid. I understand that. I get it. And the idea that you have to make a brand new exotic then also probably also isn't helping the situation. Because you got to make it Siva themed. People be like, oh, Siva's coming back. Like, no, Siva's never fucking coming back. I just like, okay, so if you drop that raid, like, are you dropping that the same? You have to drop that the same time that you're dropping a dungeon. Which one gets dropped at the beginning of the episode? Which one gets dropped after? Like, I would say you almost certainly can't drop the raid at the beginning of the episode because, hey, you just dropped a raid 6 weeks ago.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I feel like you would have to drop the dungeon maybe like in the first couple weeks of this one. And like with the story being dropped, like who knows how this is going to work, right? And then like maybe you drop the raid sometime in November. And like I think things like that help elevate seasons that maybe have poor storylines to begin with, because it's always like, oh, we always have a raid or a dungeon of some kind. We always do every season. This season, I think this episode, I think it feels, it's weird to say it feels bad when we just had all the stuff from Vinyl Shape and like, oh, we got Salvation's Edge, but like Salvation's Edge does not seem to be a raid that people really want to go grind right now. Like, it is because it requires you to actually participate and do the fucking mechanics.
Yeah.
I really think that the Verity encounter, I think people get through, they kind of stumble through encounters 1 and 2, 3 is easy. And they get the Verity and they're like, oh, nope, I'm done. I don't want to do Verity. Or they just want to grab boss CPs and like just kind of stand in the corner during Witness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because like we have a question tonight about the difficulty of the game, and I don't think that the difficulty is in a bad spot personally. I know there are some people who think that it is. A lot of, and I'm not saying that the person who asked this question is like this, but a lot of very chronically online people and who only play Destiny people think the game has now gotten easy, that all the changes introduced last year have been walked back. I don't feel that at all personally. The only area where I kind of feel that is like when I'm just doing solo overthrows in the Pale Heart. Other than that, I don't really feel it. I feel like the difficulty is still there personally. I don't know. I don't know what you can do to salvage this particular season at this point. Like, I feel like it just, regardless of like revelations at this point, it's going to feel like it's coming in too hot. We got 4 weeks of story left.
Right.
And next week, we already know next week's going to end on another cliffhanger. Like, the radio messages are better than the actual like story missions right now.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration.
It most certainly is not.
Like, maybe the best mission so far of this whole episode has been saving Failsafe's pet frog this week. I'm not even kidding. Like, that actually might be the best quest.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you go from here. I think that this season's just kind of a wash at this point. Like, I kind of accept that we got Final Shape with it and move on, I guess. Wait for the exotic mission. Hopefully it's a bitch and exotic. I can't wait to see it in action. I can't wait to do the mission. I love the exotic missions. But like, and that can always redeem it a little bit. Like we talked about, like I think the activities in part 1 were good. They're just, we get tired of the arena modes after a few weeks, and I think they were smart to realize that and not try to hinge an entire 18-week episode on Breach Executable and Enigma Protocol. Thank God. Like, Enigma Protocol reuses a lot of assets that we saw on Expunge, that's a smart way to reuse your stuff. I don't know. I'm gonna talk in circles, but I don't know where we go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else other than what you already said. I mean, like, I don't know. This just feels like, okay, Final Shape, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Into the Light, great. This is the lull after the, all the excitement, right? And
Right.
I'm not going to judge. I mean, this episode is mediocre at best so far, but like, I'm not going to judge an entire like new release schedule based on 2 acts of one episode. Now, next episode.
I think it's for me. It's a bummer because the Vex are still such a mystery, and we're kind of getting nowhere with this, right?
Yeah.
Like I think this was a really cool golden opportunity to tie up some loose ends. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if doing a episode based on the most unknown race, really the only unknown race of enemy combatants in Destiny, was like really the best idea here. I think the Vex would have been better explored as the antagonist of the next major expansion, which we pretty much now know isn't coming until it sounds like 2026.
Yeah.
That's a bold fucking move. That's a really bold move. But if you can, and I think a lot of us are kind of like on edge because like, Echoes hasn't been that good. But hey, if you can hit a cadence, with Revenant and Heresy, then maybe we've got it. There are so many storytelling opportunities here that you can do, and I'm just so curious to see what you do. Like, I have questions, well, if you're not going to drop a new release next year, and Project Frontiers is it, like, what do we do about the raids? Like, it would kind of be lined up for you to drop a raid to cap off Heresy, but you're also supposed to get a dungeon. Are you going to give us a dungeon and a raid in 2 consecutive seasons? Like, how are you going to do this? That's kind of a weird thing, to think about. In a 9-week period or 18-week period, you would get both twice, conceivably. Or do you hold the raid until the next episode? Like, it's just the cadence is really weird. Like, you do back-to-back. At some point, you have to do back-to-back episodes with raids, and that's a really weird thing to think about. But knowing who we're going to be up against in the rest of these episodes, like, well, that would leave an opportunity for us to go in and do a raid against Xivu Wrath or against Savathun, to cap this year off, which would be really cool. Leaves us an opportunity for a dungeon to maybe take down Xivu or to take down Fikrul. Like, there are so many storytelling opportunities if we can just get past like this boring ass one.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because there's so many opportunities with the Vex, but I just we could have gone back to the Deepstone Crypt. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm glad they're using Nessus, but we're not really doing anything on Nessus yet. And it sounds like they're saving things up. I was reading some of the lore earlier and I was telling Corey, like, I really didn't want to get into it because I feel like it's going to be big spoiler territory, but like, we've got the events of the Vault of Glass getting referenced again. And like, where are we going with this? Like, right. Between this and the Aegis showing up in Final Shape, and like, where are we going with some of this right now?
Right.
So, I don't know. I don't want to talk in circle. We have a pretty lengthy TWAB to get through, but I just kind of wanted to open up with discussion about Echoes. And I mean, we're going to have another one next week with the story advancing, maybe. But other than that, like, okay, well, then there we go. We got 3 weeks of, no story. 2 of those weeks are going to be Iron Banner, though. Hooray.
Yay.
And all 3 weeks are going to be Solstice. So
are they 2 weeks in a row for Iron Banner again?
Yeah. They said that's the schedule they're sticking to for this episode. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. I just think that Tribute sucks. I think if it's just if it's Control, and like when we're about to get into some of the changes coming to Iron Banner,
I think it would be cool if it was like 1 week a rotating mode and then 1 week was Control.
So that's what they did this past time. The first week was Control, and then the second week was Tribute. Tribute just sucks so much ass that it was unplayable.
Yeah.
But we have a pretty lengthy PvP Strike Team update this week. Yeah. God, this is so long. Okay. So I'm gonna fly through some of this as quickly as I can. State of the Crucible. There's a lot of stuff here. So General Crucible. We've already discussed all of this before. Map waiting. Increased weight. So when we say increasing the weight, increasing the amount of times you're going to see this in a playlist. In sixes, you're going to see an increased weight for Jav 4, Burnout, Endless Veil, Cirrus Plaza, Dissonance, and Eventide Ruins. Of course, those last three are the three brand new maps. I find it hilarious that the other three are maps that have been in since Vanilla D2.
Yeah.
That's actually hilarious to me. Reduced weight for Disjunction, Cathedral of Dusk, Convergence, Twilight Gap, Exodus Blue. I can't tell you the last time I got Twilight Gap. I don't think I've played Twilight Gap legit in like 2 years.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time
that map like never shows up for me in sixes ever. So, and then Dead Cliffs is the only map not in control currently, because they're trying yet again to rework the spawn and zone locations. Good luck. All other maps have standard weighting. Lobby balance. We've built a new version of the Snake Draft that should handle fire teams better, and we'll be rolling it out in update 8.0.5 as we continue to look for the optimal solution to lobby balance. Random lobby balancing generates poor quality matches more than any other method. Snake Draft works well for all solo games but doesn't handle fire teams well, and average skill works better for fire teams but can lead to frustrating team compositions. They don't believe they're done iterating on lobby balance. It's an ongoing battle to ride the line between pure fairness in terms of outcome and making sure each player in the game has someone on the other team they can compete with head to head. And that is like the core problem with the Crucible, I think.
Yeah.
Because Crucible it's different than any other PvP in any game that I've played, in the sense of, yeah, you've got like random rolled guns and stuff. It's not like COD where, you can go in and customize your stuff like down to the compensator that you have on it, I would argue that, the way that certain guns play, the way that it really comes down to, I think, abilities and supers. But also like map design. Like I feel like there's just a lot to be desired on the PvP side of things here. And the fact that certain things are locked behind, like, oh, you got to do really good in like trials or in comp or in a raid in order to get like the best stuff in the game. And I get it, because this is very MMO centric, but this isn't a problem that other multiplayer FPSs have. Like Halo has never had this issue.
Yeah.
COD doesn't really have this issue. Like COD has the issue of like, oh, you can't get certain parts unless you do certain challenges. That can get annoying. But other than that, it's like, okay, what do you want us to do? There's not much to do. Like lobby balancing is still a huge issue. Going kind of toe to toe with that is quitting penalties. I've seen a lot of content creators, specifically in like PvP heavy players, throw absolute fits over, correctly so, I think, over the matchmaking. But I think the way they're expressing it is really bad. They're like, oh, I just leave. I just leave when I see certain things. And I'm like, why? Like, I understand that you want your KD and like your win loss to stay high, and maybe this is just the casual in me speaking, but it's like, I don't understand what the deal is. They are doing quitting penalties now, which I think is really interesting. We've seen in 66 playlists, we've seen an uptick in quitting across the board over the last several months, stemming in large part from higher skill players who find themselves joining and then quitting to search for easier matches. The problems with this are twofold. If they are one of the high-skilled players on their team, the lobby has been balanced around their presence. When they leave, it puts their team at a significant disadvantage. And it forces us to try and pull a player to join an in-progress game, and it is unlikely you can find a player who matches the same skill profile, which means when that player joins a game that's already started, they are also at a disadvantage. If this was isolated, it would be one thing, but there are a number of players who are habitual quitters, leaving more than 30% of their total games.
Jeez.
That's fucking wild.
30%?
30% of their total
Jesus
games.
Christ, dude.
Yeah. A limitation of the current quitter penalty is we could not make it too stringent because we want to avoid punishing players who experience random error codes or who need to leave a game occasionally for a valid reason. If you play a long string of games without quitting, the game will place you in good standing and be lenient if you occasionally get disconnected or must leave. But if you habitually quit a high percentage of your games, you'll be placed into probationary status, and if you continue to leave games, it will result in escalating timeouts in Crucible for every match left. For normal players, this should result in less frustrating instances of being booted from a match and getting timed out, but high-volume quitters will find the system far less forgiving. The initial values for good standing and probationary are also tunable, so if we find it to be too strict or too lenient, we can quickly adjust. I like this. Fuck y'all who are leaving matches.
Right.
Like, I get that occasionally you have a legit reason why you need to leave. You have a child who needs your attention. You have a power outage. You get DC'd because there's a hiccup in your internet. If you're leaving because the game is too hard or because you're throwing a hissy fit, fuck y'all. I have the same opinion about anybody who does this in Gambit or who bails out in strikes once they finish their bounties. I got the same opinion about all of y'all. If you join something, have the intention to finish it.
Yeah.
I would say a raid or a dungeon is different because, you can get a replacement.
Yeah.
But you should still stick around until that replacement gets there. Fuck y'all if you're doing this in randomly match-made activities.
Right.
I got nothing nice to say to you. I think that is just the silliest. It's as silly as when everybody was just throwing themselves off the ledge in trials to get free trials rep. And
right. I remember. God, I remember that.
That was fucking stupid too. Yeah. Like, no, don't just sit there and throw the matches. That's so stupid. Oh boy.
People are dumb, man.
People are really fucking dumb in this game. Abilities. We talked about the abilities. We talked about Prismatic Hunter last week and the week before. Threaded Spectre is getting nerfed. Aim assist length on Threaded Spectre is being reduced by 50% and added a short delay before the aim assist takes effect. Threaded Spectre detonation damage versus players has been reduced by 45%. And then Swarm Grenade. Reduced the distance Swarm Grenade projectiles can travel once they begin tracking a target by 20%. I don't know if that's enough. I think it's less of how far they can track you and more of how much fucking damage they do.
Right.
But I get the idea that like they want that to be an aggressive grenade that you're throwing because it's meant to travel. But I also think like by virtue of it traveling, it probably should be nerfed just a little bit in terms of the damage. I think maybe like 15% nerf in damage would go well with this.
Yeah.
Because that's my thing. When all those projectiles start hitting, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
No matter what. So interested about that. God, the special ammo economy. There's charts here for you guys to review if you want to know how the new ammo economy is going. The blended system, which is what they've been rolling out to almost every mode, is going to be what they do in Crucible until they've completed the rebuild of the ammo meter, a process which is extremely complex but is underway. We'll provide an update when we have a potential release timeline. Trials will be swapping over to the blended system, and the prototype meter will be fully deprecated from our core Crucible experience. I'm interested to see how long this is going to take, because the fact they don't have a timeline on this tells me this is probably, at minimum, rebuilding the special ammo meter is probably something that's not going to come until the mid-episode patch for Revenant. I would expect not to see this before November.
Yeah.
Like Thanksgiving time would be the absolute earliest I would say you're going to get it. You probably won't get it until after that. I would say maybe coming back from the holidays is when you'll see it, because they're not going to want to drop this and then have people in and out of the office for 6 weeks.
Right.
So very interested about that. I think the biggest changes, however, are definitely coming to Trials and Iron Banner here. Trials. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. So they've they recap here what the passage updates were that they rolled out a little while ago, along with reward updates. Which I mean I really like. As a as a reminder, any win has a 50% chance to drop the non-adept weekly weapon. Once you have been flawless and are playing on a 7-win card, you also have a 50% chance to drop the adept version of the weekly weapon on wins. When playing as a trio for game completions, does not have to be a win. You get an additional 50% chance to drop the non-adept weekly weapon. 50% chance at a Trials Engram drop, and bonus Trials rep. And you now get bonus rewards, including Trials Armor, Enhancement Cores, Trials Weapons, and Enhancement Prisms based on how many wins you get before your card became flawed. They still believe there is room for improvement, and they are trying to really get you to play with friends. It's a trios mode, play with trios. I love this change to persistence. Passage of persistence. When you play as a trio, losses will no longer remove wins. This means when you play Trials as a full fire team on the Passage of Persistence, you only need to get 7 wins total, and you will receive a drop of the weekly Adept weapon. Winning a match will still result in having a win subtracted. You must complete the match for it to forgive the loss. We want to make Trials rewarding for more kinds of players, but we will have more details on this later. In the long term, we are looking to bring more players into Trials by offering alternative 3v3 experience that's more like Iron Banner in terms of the loot chase, not being mostly reliant on wins. We also want to make the Challenger pool less of an all-or-nothing experience. We can lean on what we've started with flawed card rewards and further reward win streaks to make it feel like less of a waste of time if you fall at the gates, while still maintaining the exclusivity of the flawless rewards. Thank you, God. Thank you, fucking God.
Tell me how you really feel, Josh. Are you excited?
I'm very excited because, let me tell you something. Trials is a mode that for years has had some of the best loot locked behind it, and I understand that there is a not insignificant portion of the fan base, myself included to a degree, who have said, tough shit, get over it, get a fire team, and go in there. Listen, people, if I can go flawless in Trials, anybody is capable of doing it. Of course, this was like years ago at this point, but if I am capable of doing it, anybody can do it at some point. I think that the loot has gotten way more forgiving. You don't have to have the Adept. Everybody gets so hung up on the Adept weapons. Yes, the Adept weapons are awesome. They are mainly there for those who are trying to absolutely min-max their loadout to the last decimal point.
Mm-hmm.
For most of us, it does not matter. It is a bragging right, and it is cool to run around and say, I got a god roll of insert weapon here, and it is the Adept version. That is cool. Getting Trials Mementos is really fucking cool. I have one Trials Memento, and I have never used it. Why? Because I know I'm never getting another one. I am saving it for a weapon that I fall in love with. It may very well be this new rocket pistol, but I'm saving it for a weapon that I really, really wanted on. You know, I have long maintained that the normal Trials weapons should be there and be accessible if you are trying. If you are just jumping off the map, you don't deserve it. That is the only thing they need. And I know this is way easier said than done. I need them to come up with a way to detect if you're just throwing the match, if you're just jumping off, because I don't want those people getting rewarded with the bonus rep, with getting rep no matter what, with getting weapons and engrams no matter what, even if they're playing in a trio. I don't want that. There need to be, you have to make it to where you're actually playing this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like maybe you have to win a match or win a game in order for these to kick in. I don't know. But there has to be some degree of trying, I think, involved. I'm not a fan of handing things out, but if you are engaging with the game mode in good faith, I see no reason why you shouldn't eventually get rewarded. And I think that's one of the things that's always been nice about Iron Banner going all the way back to D1. You played, you engaged with it, you get the rewards. That was always a way to get end game level rewards without having to raid.
Yeah.
And now, but unfortunately with Trials, there have been so many weapons over the years that have been absolutely meta in there. The first pass through Summoner, when Trials first came back, for instance. We all remember Season of the Chosen when Igneous Hammer and Messenger came into the game.
Yep.
We remember Shayura's. The first time every time Shayura's comes back. Last year, just last spring, Immortal reigned supreme for 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It was so ridiculously, it was so good they had to nerf that specific weapon like 3 or 4 times. You know, it happens. It works. There are good weapons that are in Trials habitually, regularly. Cataphract became one of the go-to heavies for doing Master Pantheon. You know, by Master Pantheon, I mean Nezarec.
Yep.
And like, I didn't have it. I didn't have it because I was having such a hard time with it. We all remember. Oh my God, what's its name? It was the stasis linear, the heavy stasis linear. It was the first one ever put in the game. They put it in when they did the Trials rework during Beyond Light, and I remember this very vividly because, and I've told this story a million times, and I'll keep telling it. A1 Johnny letting me know 3-4 o'clock in the morning while I'm on vacation that he had just gone flawless to the lighthouse for the very first time, and that was the reward. So everyone was playing that weekend, and I was like, of course, I'm on vacation, and sealed
Reed's Regret, was that it?
Reed's Regret, that's the name of it. I haven't used it in so long, I forgot. But we've had so many meta weapons through Trials over the years, and not just in PvP either. Like, a lot of these are very good PvE weapons on top of that. And it just kind of has gotten to this point where it was like, okay, yes, I understand the concept of get good and like, oh, not everybody's meant to compete in Trials. Yes, here's the problem. They keep putting good loot in there because they need the player base to go up, but it's such a sweat fest for most of us in threes that it's just not worth it. Conversely, I feel like Iron Banner loot's been kind of like middling for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mode that like definitely gets pushed because everyone has access to it. And it's like, well, you can't make the rewards too meta out it then. It's just really weird dichotomy, but I'm glad to see this because inevitably this is going to impact players. Like next episode, I would guess, is when we're going to get the new Trials armor, probably going to get a couple new weapons. I'm very excited for this so I can catch up on the stuff I don't have. The legacy focusing also makes this even better because now you can get extra Trials Ingrams from playing as a trio.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll turn those in for legacy focusing options. So like for me, I'm going to turn them all in towards Cataphract.
Yeah.
I want that in my loot pool so it's cheaper for me to buy now. I'm going to have 5 Ingrams to buy that thing for the first time because I didn't unlock it in its season. That's insane. Yeah. But I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just glad there's still a path to get some of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's good, right? I mean,
it's great. It's what we want.
Yeah.
But hearing that there's going to be an Iron Banner style experience to threes makes me pretty excited.
Yeah.
I like the idea of that, especially if it's going to be more geared towards the casual community. I like that. That's why I stay away from Trials. I don't like how Elite Trials has always been. It's always been associated with being the pinnacle mode, which is fine. But it is to a point where, okay, we have to come play this though because like the good shit's in there. Like we may go a couple seasons without something good, but when something good, it's like game-breakingly good.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't do it that first weekend it's available, you're like, good luck. So,
yep. Good luck, my friend.
Comp. There's been a lot of changes in comp. I'm not going to read through all the changes. You guys are free to read those. We feel the foundation with these latest updates. The competitive playlist is solid. Following the release of the final shape, we just had the best 30-day stretch in over a year in terms of player participation, and specifically, this previous week was the highest hours played per account in the last 8 months.
Ooh.
Since we've made a lot of changes recently moving forward, we want to allow the playlist to stabilize and give players time to get used to this iteration. We're going to plan to build on this foundation, further refine the game modes and rule sets, and allow it to be a place where you can see and feel your improvement and growth as a player. To start, in the next update, we will reduce the score to win in Clash from 40 to 35 to bring game times closer to the 8-minute target. In addition, we'll update spawn policy in Collision to favor spawning you nearer your teammates. We recently made this change to Clash, and we have seen the incidence of split spawns go down dramatically, and believe this will improve Collisions similarly. Longer term, we have a couple goals we want to tackle. We think the point rewards for the ranking system, though improved, still need work in terms of how understandable they can be. We'd like to move back to a system where player performance in match has more of a direct impact on how much you gain or lose, and whether each player can easily understand why they've earned the amount they did at the end of each game. We also want to further improve Collision's gameplay, and we're investigating ways to make the matches feel fairer and more predictable. Cool. I still think you need more rewards for this mode.
Yep.
I think having the weapons and weapon focusing that you have now, the spawn in animation, the emblems, like all that's cool. Let's get some shaders. Let's maybe get some ornaments in there. Get some ornaments for the comp guns in there.
Yeah.
Like these are some ideas, of things you could do for reaching certain ranks, or, I don't know, maybe there's like a point. I don't want more currencies, but maybe there's rewards you can get for getting to certain ranks in a season. I don't know. Or maybe, you accumulate a certain amount of playtime over the course of an expansion and you get a weapon ornament or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's got to be ways to get more rewards in comp. You've done it for trials. We need some comp mementos or something.
Yeah.
We got to get some things going in there.
Yeah, there's got to be something.
Oh boy. Iron Banner.
Iron Banner.
So there's been a lot of changes to Iron Banner. Again, you guys can read this, especially on matchmaking. I would encourage you reading this if you don't understand why matchmaking is the way it is in the game. They do give a chart, which I think is a really good chart to take a look at. Iron Banner participation over the last 4 years, you can see that since we moved away from purely random matchmaking in the fall of 2022, our participation peaks have generally increased, and our TROs are higher too. The current outlier protection system, paired with fire team matchmaking, represents a strong balance between allowing highly skilled players and large fire teams to succeed, while promoting variability in match feel without making newer and lower skilled players, solo players, and small fire teams feel completely like fodder. I don't know that I fully agree with that. I do think that this is a good chart to look at. You can clearly see where the lows were, and it was right around the time that we were building up to the Witch Queen. It looks like, for all the talk that I've ever heard from people about, oh my god, the 30th anniversary is the best balanced PvP sandbox that we've ever had. This chart would like to argue with you on that. It's so crazy to get back to the peak of like 50% or more in terms of accounts being active. You have to go all the way back to the pandemic. You go all the way back to summer 2020. And it's funny, like, you look at these peaks and they really coincide with like big content drops too.
Yeah.
Or like major patches. So yeah, that's a little funny to think about when you look at all of this. When I'm looking at the numbers they have laid out here, and I don't know, there's definitely still problems with the matchmaking. I mean, I was just griping about it myself earlier on this episode. They gotta figure out something. It's fire team matching and skill based is just not together. It's just not it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
They
gotta figure it out.
We believe there's more work to be done to improve Iron Banner, specifically for casual and mixed skill fire teams. We want to investigate offering a more relaxed variant of Iron Banner with minimal matchmaking stratification and a focus on the less serious game modes. We also want to be able to reward fire teams better in general, like we've begun to do in trials. Good, because that's something that needs to happen. Everything I hear from anybody, regardless of skill level, is I miss when Iron Banner was a fun PvP mode. Yeah, it was Pinnacle, but it was a fun PvP mode to just go hang out with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, Dealer was talking to me about this. He was like, I am in such a high skill bracket that he goes, whenever I play with friends, my friends get demolished. AKA, I got demolished when I was in his lobbies. And he's like, that's because a lot of my friends are higher skill levels. And like, I'm very mid. I'm happy to even have a positive KD at this point. But yeah, that's the issue you run into, is how do you balance this around like the god tier players and then the people who are just there for the loot and to have fun.
Yeah.
So I do like that they are investigating doing it around the more fun modes. I really hope that means Iron Banner Mayhem comes back at some point, because that was great. Just let me go in there and fire supers off with my friends.
Yeah.
And then later this season, we have more to talk about in terms of what is coming in episode Revenant and beyond. We're excited to share that with you once update 8.0.5 is out the door. I believe that is the mid-season update that should be dropping this next Tuesday. So a little curious to see when they're going to address this. I would imagine sometime in August we're going to hear from the PvP team again. Whew. Okay. I'm going to take a drink because that was a lot.
Sippy sippy for Josh. Sippy sippy.
I still have this cough. I definitely have like the worst case of bronchitis I've ever had in my life. They aren't sure if it's bronchitis or walking pneumonia at this point, but I've got one of the two.
I mean,
and it has just been a miserable summer.
Yeah, I don't.
I'll go several days like being fine, and then like today has just been a cough attack all day.
Yeah.
All right. Exotic class item drop tuning update. I love that they're having to do this because people have gone and made macros to farm chests in the landing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Leopard Stealth was one of the ones who was really kind of pushing it, and people like Fallout were like, I'm not personally going to run this macro because Bungie is like really iffy on macros. They usually don't mind for PvE content, but he's like, I am not testing fate here.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Leopard was running a macro that was allowing him to hit all 3 symbols at once while he was trying to do solo witness challenges this week. Oh. And Dylan had to pop in and be like, we're giving you a warning publicly about this. You can't do this.
Jeez.
And people are like, oh, how come a giant content creator's getting a warning? Like, because it's going to increase the visibility of it. That's why.
Right.
But this tuning update for the class items is in direct response to that fucking macro. Like, I was just saying to somebody the other day, I was like, they've got to figure out a way to get that out of there. Because people are just letting their computers run AFK overnight and come back to like 30 class items in the morning.
That's ridiculous.
We're currently targeting the following changes for early August. Increased chances for drops when opening overthrow chests. As you open chests tied to overthrow activities, your chances will increase. Higher tier chests get bigger increases to drop chances. This should decrease the amount of time it takes on average to get an exotic class item. We'll be watching the feedback. Reducing chances from unrelated pale heart chests in free roam to encourage overthrow participation. So they're nerfing it for people who are just running around opening the chests because, we can't have anything nice thanks to macro people. An increased chance stored up from overthrow chests apply to lost sectors and co-op missions that take place in the Pale Heart. Additionally, we're adding a weekly challenge to Dual Destiny. Players will be able to earn 1 additional exotic class item when completing the activity per week per character. Subsequent completions will function normally. We're also aware of player feedback concerning the desire for these exotics to come from more activities outside of the Pale Heart. Many thanks to all those who have been giving feedback. We'll continue to monitor after the above-mentioned changes go live. I think this is a good change. Unpopular opinion, I think this is a good change. Dual Destiny, once you have run it once or twice, you can get through that mission in about 20-25 minutes very easily.
Yeah.
2 drops for 25 minutes feels about what it would take for me to like run around and open a bunch of chests.
Mm-hmm.
This encourages overthrow participation too. We're gonna have to see what the cadence looks like, but if you can get 1 per overthrow run, that would be an awesome cadence.
Yeah,
I would do that. I would just do the match made overthrow constantly to get them. In terms of like what activities you could put them in outside of the Pale Heart, I mean, I do think that was always going to be the inevitable outcome of this, was they were going to have to figure out a way to do this outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would say if Grandmasters, I think should give an opportunity for them to drop. I think you should get a chance from master or expert level seasonal missions. So like if I do an expert battlegrounds, I should have like maybe a 10% chance for 1 to drop. If I do a breach executable, maybe because that's match made, maybe I get like a 5 to 10% chance.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's ways to do it without making it feel like, oh my God, I'm getting it all the time. Like Ergo Sum, I feel like I get like 15 a week when I go do stuff in the Pale Heart, because I get 1 from almost every goddamn overthrow completion. I get 3 a week just from finishing my Pathfinders. I get enough chances at the sword. I would much rather get chances at the class item with how many combinations there are.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, also, I think that if you added to more things outside, maybe you're more willing to expand the perk pools a little bit next year. I don't know. I think there should be chances, especially in master level activities, to get these to drop. That's my takeaway from this. And that's not me saying like, oh, you're trying to kill the normies' chance to get it. Like, no, but the people who are really trying to grind this shit out are the people who are trying to do endgame content with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is taking the place of their normal exotic. So, like on that front, I get it. Like you're running meta builds with these. You're not getting this just for funsies.
Mm-hmm.
You're not grinding these out for fun. You're grinding these out because you're looking for a specific combo. And there's a lot of combos in this game.
Yeah.
That you can potentially get. So, yeah, that's my takeaway. That's my takeaway right now. I still think that it's solid. I think there's something like over 100 combinations for each class. There's so much. So something had to change. In terms of things changing, if you did not get those crispy into the light weapons from Onslaught, you'll now be able to focus them at Zavala. In update 8.0.5, players can visit Zavala to access a new Onslaught attunement menu. Players can select a single Brave Arsenal weapon they'd like to attune to, increasing drop chance by 60% in Onslaught. This is increased from the 50% drop chance increase in Into the Light. There is no cooldown or cost, so you can swap your chosen weapon at any time, and your selected weapon will remain attuned until you change it or deactivate the attunement. So, cool. Also, it did not feel like 50 fucking percent when I was attuned to it, but I'll leave that be.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. The fact that I would do multiple runs without getting a single drop of the weapon that I was attuned to or turn in a ton of tokens next to Zavala. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Sure, Jan.
Sure. Also, when are we getting the parade armor back? Asking for a friend who forgot to buy the helmet. Also, definitely did not buy them at all on my other classes. All right. Destiny art shows. It's an art show a decade in the making. Join us in Los Angeles, New York, and London for a celebration of the Destiny universe featuring over 30 pieces of original art, including paintings, ghost sculptures, props, and more. Entry is free. Just be sure to keep an eye on socials next week for a page link to reserve your spot. Los Angeles, it'll be at the Nucleus Gallery from September 14th through the 22nd. In New York, the White Space in Chelsea from the 17th to the 20th of October, and in London, the Different Gallery from November 6th through the 10th. Cool. Please bring it more places than just like 3 of the biggest places on Earth.
Yeah.
People in the South and in the Midwest love you too. Also, how are you not doing this in fucking Seattle? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, isn't that like right down the
street? Shouldn't you like be kicking this off at like PAX or something?
Yeah. Man, that would have made sense.
Josh,
that would have made too much sense.
I occasionally have ideas, but I'm not gonna lie. If they were like, yeah, we're gonna do one in Austin or in Houston, I'd drive. Yeah. I'd drive down.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me you couldn't squeeze it in down in Austin at some point. See how big Texas is?
It's not very big.
I digress. Also, like if you're in Europe, good luck. You have to get to London. I think that's it.
I'm dying. Choking.
Please don't die.
On Red Bull. It's fine. I'm all right. I'm about to get my spiritual wings.
Jesus.
It's okay. We're all good. Carry on.
I think that's it for our TWAB this week. Just man, PvP. I don't want to say that PvP is at like the lowest it's ever been because it's definitely not. But man, it doesn't feel good. It has been a rough time over there lately. And I say that as somebody with 2 resets.
Yeah,
it's been rough. I did almost all of that, I think, during Iron Banner Control.
Yeah, well, so you're not going to do it during.
Not going to do it during Tribute. I'm sure as hell not going in there and playing regular Iron or regular Crucible these days.
Why not? I hear it's great.
Oh yeah, it's fucking wonderful, man.
Oh, I'm being an ass. It's fine.
Oh boy. All right. Well, Corey, we've got I actually, before we get to questions, I wanted to pose something to you that I saw on socials last week, and I said last week that I was going to bring it up.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was a bit of a controversial take.
Controversy on
Glad,
the internet?
yeah,
What?
Glad made a post and had a not insignificant amount of people agreeing with him that Destiny 2 just needs to go away. They need to release Destiny 3, take away all our gear and everything, have everybody start with a clean slate. And you know what? I got actually pretty annoyed by that take. I'm going to tell you right fucking now. If Destiny 3 comes out, if it ever happens, which I'm getting slightly more convinced, I'm gonna need to wait until like we get that 10th anniversary stream at the end of August, beginning of September, which we all know is coming, even though they haven't announced it yet. I'm gonna need them to come out and explicitly say that Destiny 3 is coming in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't think now is the time to announce it. I think this time next year is probably when it gets announced. Just to like not kill engagement. But if they ever do announce it, so help me God, if you tell me all my stuff's going away again, I'm done. That is my walk away point. I will genuinely walk away at that stage. Because I have put enough time in across 2 different games, earning some of the shit I've earned like 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. It was part of a longer rant he was having that I agreed with some parts of it. Like there shouldn't be world's first races for reprised raids. The whole 2 completion thing for them to count as a contest clear is also very silly. I agreed with both of those points. And he was particularly upset because he's like, I already did this raid. I know who got world's first on it. This is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And like I understand those points. I did not agree with the fact that him and several other people in his comments were like, the reprised raids are just nostalgia bait. Like, no, it's literally some of the best content they've ever made. Why wouldn't they bring that forward? D1 is dead. D1 is totally fucking dead. I don't know if you tried playing that game in like the last 18 months. It's dead. It's a ghost town over there.
I'm gonna tell you, I downloaded it on PlayStation.
I'm sorry.
I was doing something. I forget what I was doing, but I was like, meh, I wonder what's going on in this one. I got into a tower. I think there was one person in there. In the tower I loaded into.
I told this story last week, but I tried to do a strike the night before Lightfall, or the day before Lightfall came out. I had re-downloaded Destiny 1. I loaded into the Vanguard Strikes playlist. It did not match me with anybody. It just dropped me into a strike solo. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know where you go from here, because I don't think that Glad's entirely wrong. I think the way that he expressed his opinion was very poor.
Yeah. Well, that's normal for him.
It was very dismissive, and like I understand that like he's got a ton of time invested in this game and this and that. And like I know he doesn't play it as hardcore as he used to. He's, one of 10 people who has every single contest emblem that they've ever done and this and that. And like all that's cool, and I'm happy for you, bud. But the majority of us don't want to grind another Destiny game. I think that would be the nail in the coffin for the franchise, truthfully. But I don't know how you keep Destiny 2 going either.
See,
it's very clear Destiny 2 needs to move on. He tried igniting the whole we need to move to another engine debate, and that just like told me like, okay, you have no idea how game development works.
Yeah.
Because it's not that easy. If it was, we'd have all the D1 content in D2 and we would just kill D1.
Yeah.
And this is that's still on the Tiger engine, mind you.
Yeah.
I do feel like Frontiers is kind of the goodbye to the legacy consoles at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's also becoming increasingly clear the reason why they haven't moved on is no one's really moving on from the old consoles because people just aren't buying the new ones. Yes, Xbox sales are in the gutter, but like PS5 also is not outpacing PS4. The fact that games like Call of Duty and 2K and Madden haven't left behind the old consoles should tell you something. Like,
yeah, the fact that you're just now hearing like console sales are soaring because of college football is like,
yeah,
and we're 4.5 years into this 5 years. How
3.5?
3.5.
We're
Whatever.
three and a half.
I don't know how time works, Josh.
We're 3.5. They launched fall 2020. And I only remember that because of Beyond Light. Beyond Light was the premium next gen experience we all got.
Right, at 30 frames a second for the first 2 months.
It was 60. It was 60. If you had it on Series X or PS5, it was 60.
No, but they remember the update didn't come out right away.
The update did come out. What it was the Crucible update wasn't applied right away. Crucible can run up to 120 frames, and it did not work properly. But the 60 frames for everything else did work, because I did a test the night it came out. I started the campaign on my Xbox One S, and then my Series S arrived during the campaign. So I took the opportunity to unpack and download it on that, and then switched over, and there was just it was instantly. I had the field of view slider, I had the 60 frames, everything. So I don't know what happened with your console.
I mean, it took like 2 weeks for mine to get there then, because I was running.
Mine was there instantaneously. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is, people have not upgraded, and a lot of that's because, specifically, Call of Duty, Madden, whatever FIFA is called these days, 2K, like those have not gone to current gen only.
Fortnite, Apex.
Fortnite's never going to.
No, I know. I'm just
when you're the most played game in the world, I don't think you should have to either. But like these games you're paying $70 for, absolutely should have done it like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I remember we were thinking like, oh man, is Witch Queen going to be where they do it? And yeah, I've had so many friends, and it's part of what I talked about last week, that got so tired of trying to find these consoles for the first year they were out that they just said fuck it and build a PC instead.
Mm-hmm. And
I can't blame you. Like at this point, if you want the absolute best performance possible, you're building a PC.
Yeah,
you're gonna play on PC.
I'm 100% past that point of trying to go out and build a PC.
I think for the demographic that they're still trying to appeal to, though, for
I know.
Gamers in their 20s,
mm-hmm.
And or maybe like they're just leaving high school and stuff, like that is, I feel, the generation that is like going full PC now.
Mm-hmm.
The old heads like us are like, man, I still really want a console. You want to know the whole reason I enjoy a console? I like sitting on my couch.
Mm-hmm.
I really like my couch.
Yep.
I really like my chair.
Yep.
I like sitting out there and playing on my 55-inch flat screen.
Mm-hmm.
But I am getting to a point where I'm pretty frustrated with the console experience overall. And it's at a point where, like, if you're getting that way with Destiny, like, you just need to switch to PC. I don't, the engine's not going to magically cure things. Like, I need people to understand this. Like, yes, part of the problem is they need to move off the Tiger engine, but that is, again, that requires a brand new game, and you're probably not going to be able to carry stuff over if you do that.
Right.
And so for me, that's a non-starter.
They need like a, I don't know what you call it, like a Destiny 2.5 almost. We're like, okay, we're leaving, we're leaving the old consoles behind. We're leaving the Soul system behind. You can carry your stuff over, but here's all the new stuff that we're going to give you that, if we were to make a new game, this would be Destiny 3, but we're not letting you leave your stuff behind type thing. I don't know how you do that. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how you like convey that message, but that's what they need essentially, is like, they need that solid break off point plus something to allow people like us who have been playing forever to not be pissed off.
Yeah, and I don't know how you do it. I don't think it's as simple as, oh, we'll just make Destiny 3 with a new engine, like you said.
Oh, no, it's not.
There has to be a way to carry over, your gear, your triumphs, your achievements, the activities that we've done. Like, I don't want to start, and I don't want to go to, I don't think people understand that, like, if we go to a new game, you're going to start out, there's literally going to be like a raid.
Yeah.
There's going to be a dungeon. And that's probably going to take like 6 months to come out.
Yeah.
Like the foundational problems are still going to be there.
And
that's why, like, if it really is going to take them 2 years to get this next expansion out, I actually think that would be a better cadence. I would be much more forgiving if we got a major expansion the size of the Final Shape or bigger every 2 years and got like 5 or 6 episodes in between with like 4 dungeons and 3 raids or something.
Mm-hmm.
I would be, or like I know like a dungeon every 18 weeks would be asking too much, but maybe the seasons where you don't get the dungeons, you get an exotic, you get the exotic mission, or you get strikes in those. Maybe they say that you get strikes in those seasons. I don't know. There's got to be a better way for content to come out at a like steady cadence, and I don't know. I didn't want to talk about Destiny 3. I was really annoyed when I saw that conversation come back up, but I felt like it was worth bringing up because we're always asked about, hypothetically in a Destiny 3, in a Destiny 3, in a Destiny 3. I want my shit. I want my triumphs. I want my titles. I want my guns. I want my catalysts. I want the stuff I've invested like 4,000 hours in over the last 7 years.
Yeah.
To carry over.
Yeah, I'm at the point where like
seriously, if you
really
take my stuff away, I'm done playing.
Yeah, I don't.
And I think most veteran players will be that way.
I don't want to.
Glads and your Gathalions will still play, but then they'll complain because, oh, imagine if we had kept everything. Shut the fuck up, you nerd. You're the one who asked for this.
Nerds.
God.
Oh, Josh, you're my favorite person on the planet.
I'm so annoyed. I'm so fucking annoyed, Corey. Like, Jesus. Like, maybe we should listen to people who actually play the game more than, like, a couple times a season. Just saying, just spitballing here, maybe we should ask, those people what they think about this. And, not the people who moved on to, quote, greener pastures and are doom and gloom every time something fucking happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. Jesus, let's go to questions. I'm annoyed. I'm really annoyed. We've only got a couple questions tonight. Where do I want to start with these? All right, we're going with Jiggly Panda first. Do you guys think that the game has gotten too easy? I feel like the changes they made a year ago haven't held up. Like I said earlier, I don't think the game is too easy. I think the game is perfectly fine. I think there is challenge in there. I think the challenge comes, like, if the game is too easy, okay, you're probably using the most meta build out there. Like, for those of us who are running normal builds or who aren't following, every, follow this for, maximum output, like, are probably still like, yeah, this is perfectly fine. Like, I think the challenge is there. I don't feel like I'm cruising through things necessarily. I do feel like this legendary I will say the legend campaign I felt was significantly easier this year than it was in Lightfall.
Mm-hmm.
Significantly so. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that I think it was easier than the Witch Queen also.
Yeah.
Because the legend campaign and Witch Queen, let me tell you something. I think that was pretty well balanced. The Savathun fight was awful. That was an experience. I didn't feel that during the Witness fight. The Witness fight was kind of like, can you do mechanics? That's basically what it asked you to do. Can you do mechanics? And can you just like do shit tons of damage with Celestial Nighthawk as quickly as possible?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it asked. And that's fine. I wasn't like, oh my God, this is like unbearable. Like, no, I wouldn't say we cruised through it. I mean, with all the server outages, like we would have been done with it a lot sooner, but we had it done that first night, which was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with, I guess Lightfall, I got done that first night too. Witch Queen went into day 2, but it's one of those things, like, I don't think that the game overall has gotten harder. Now, I think if you go outside of like the normal version of something, it gets drastically harder. Like, I'm sorry, the fucking Battlegrounds, recommended power is 1945. Let me tell you something. I'm getting my ass cooked in that third one. I have 105 resilience. I'm getting my ass fucking cooked by that boss.
Mm-hmm.
And by the fucking Minotaurs. I get one-shotted. Like, what the hell, guy? I can't imagine what that's... I'm not doing that one on Expert. Fuck y'all. I'm so interested to see how it plays as a GM, but I am not doing that one on Expert. I'm doing that second one on Expert. That's the one I'm doing. I don't think the game's gotten too easy. I think in some respects it is easy, But overall, I definitely think the challenge is still there.
Yeah.
So, do you think we'll get the exotic mission in this act or in Act 3? Also, will we see a dungeon? The exotic mission's already confirmed for Act 3.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, you can go look at Triumphs, and it seems like they're basing everything around certain activities in each act. There's no room left to go drop the exotic quest this act either. The minute that they decided that they were going to put Solstice in for the last 3 weeks was the first clue, but also I think it was data mined like forever ago that's going to drop in Act 3. And a dungeon, it's too late. It's too late now to drop a dungeon.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's too late. There's 9 weeks left, but unless they pull a real fast one on us and it somehow hasn't leaked at all, I don't think you're getting a dungeon. Because I'm 99% certain the dungeon that we're getting next episode is us storming Fickrell's Keep. The thing that's been described as a vampire lord's castle, which sounds fucking cool. And if you're going to tell me that we're not going to get a dungeon on the Dreadnought, I might actually scream. Because there's never been an environment in Destiny more perfect for a dungeon than the Dreadnought.
Yeah. I don't know how you can't at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna need one. I'm gonna need one on the Dreadnought. I think those are the areas like we should be doing it, like these like kind of limited areas, because then they get to live on in the game. I think that's cool. Like, as much as I want to go back to like Deepstone Crypt, or I would love a dungeon set in the Infinite Forest. But if I don't get it, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I think it would be really cool to like fight an enemy through time. But I don't make this content. I've tried. I don't make this content. And then Tire Jesus writes, and kind of tying into that, with all the trauma Saint is going through this episode, do you think he'll reset himself? How would you feel about Saint-14? Will we ever see an Exo reset themselves in the game? I think it's only a matter of time. I don't know if it'll be Saint, just because Saint-14 is so synonymous.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I could actually see Banshee being the one to get reset.
I know. I was about to say the same thing. We'd probably get Banshee 45.
Yeah, I get Banshee 45. Because like Clovis is still out there fucking around somewhere. Maybe Micah 10 becomes Micah 11. But I think like when it comes to Saint and Cade, like those are two Exos you're not going to touch because their numbers are like just so significant.
Yeah.
We know them as, we call them Cade, we call them Saint. But at the same time, it would upend what we've come to expect. Yeah. I think the story is kind of setting itself that you could do that. I need to see how next week plays out before I start thinking about that, because next week's story, we're supposed to go to Saint's grave in the Infinite Forest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very interested to see how that plays. Because if he's still convinced that he's not the real Saint, that's 3 weeks left to wrap something up. I think 3 weeks is probably too short of a time for him to reset himself now. Unless it's now, what would be an interesting twist, I think, is if Saint gets forcefully reset by the Conductor. The Conductor basically takes away Saint's will and forcefully resets him and turns him into Saint-15. That could be fascinating.
Yeah, I would say, especially if they want this relationship between him and Osiris to be somewhat impactful on another level, like Saint either being forcefully reset or sacrificing himself to be reset at some point to save Osiris because he doesn't have the light or something like that, would be really an interesting twist on their relationship. And then how do they recover from that, Well,
so I think the other thing about if you forcefully reset Saint and turn him into Saint-15, he presumably doesn't have his memories of Osiris. He presumably doesn't remember anything that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Being the city's greatest protector, this and that. Who hosts Trials of Osiris at that point?
Brother Vance. They found him.
My fucking God. He strangled himself.
Him
and the copy of himself created by the darkness killed each other.
There's another version of him in the Infinite.
I would laugh very hard if we find Brother Vance next week. If we find Brother Vance next week, I'm like going to become fully convinced that Saint-14 may be on the table. But I think that's a good thought-provoking question because I hadn't really thought about it that way. But if the Conductor does have a way to like forcefully bring Exos under their command and could reset them with like, you know, the flick of the finger, you know, using this echo, why not do it to the most famous defender of the tower?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that could set up an interesting plot line heading into like Frontiers or something next year. Because we already know that like we wouldn't be dealing with it the rest of this year. There could be some interesting things. Maybe you get a Vex dungeon at some point. And at the end, what if you had to fight Saint-15 at the end of a dungeon?
I mean, that'd be pretty crazy.
And like back him up to being Saint-14. I don't even know if that's possible, but it would be cool.
Well, isn't there that
Just name him Saint-69 and get it over with.
Oh God. Isn't there that machine on Europa that like holds the memories of Exos though?
Yes, but I don't know if it's still being used with Guardians of the Light.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it would have his memories from before the collapse.
Yeah. Which would be another problem altogether. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's a really good question, though. And I actually look forward to maybe exploring this again either next week, optimistically, or in 6 weeks where we complain what could have been. Because I think that would also, like, that would make to where, man, okay, they're not playing around. There's real stakes here.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for questions. We've got a lore corner, and then I think we're out of here, Corey.
Lore corner.
Lore corner. Which window do I have it in? Is the question. Oh, did I accidentally close the window I had it in?
Uh-oh.
That's not good if I did. I think I did.
Uh-oh.
Well, this is interesting.
I'm fascinated with some of the stuff I've been reading in the lore, by the way. I don't want to spoil anything because some of it's not 100% confirmed, but
there it is.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff. Specifically the lore book for this season that you get from listening to the radio conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a particularly good lore book right now, especially if you're interested in the Vex and maybe where this story is going. That is a really good lore book to read.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to diving into that more once we get a better idea of the Conductor and what their goal is.
Yeah.
So, all right. This is Gifted Conviction, which is the the new Hunter chest piece. The helm's quiet, save for a few robotic sentries monitoring the systems close by. The tablet in Ikora's grasp beeps in response to her touch, and a set of projections appear before her. She searches through the information on the Soul Divisive, models, weaknesses, radial area research, even hidden specific analyses of their habits and types. She glides her index finger over the screen until she finds a recording of a troop of goblins being felled by a guardian. It's quick, a couple shots at most before they crumble to the ground in a puddle of radial area, and the recording stops. The dim eye of the broken Vex catches her attention, and she becomes so lost in contemplation that she barely hears another enter the room. She turns her head. Mithrax, Ikora acknowledges with a small nod. Ikora, he says, returning the greeting. Has your research proven fruitful? Sadly, no, she answers. Her gaze returns to the screen and she sighs. I spent hours investigating the factions most likely to support the witness, but it all just feels like a distraction, like they're fodder for its end goal. Mithrax hums in agreement, his attention on the Vex goblin she'd previously been transfixed by. Why would the Soul Divisive consider throwing themselves into the line of fire for something like the final shape, she asks. Maybe they simply have faith. Faith? Ikora huffs involuntarily, something akin to a faintly sardonic laugh. We both know the Soul Divisive are an anomaly among the Vex, but are they even capable of that? What else would convince one to commit life and death to a cause, if not faith in said cause? Mithrax's tone is one of self-recognition and of understanding. The idea of a better future. Ikora remains quiet. Her eyes find the single eye of the goblin once more. They chose their path for a reason that gives them purpose. Not unlike ourselves, Mithrax elaborates, hand gesturing to the screen. Perhaps that is how the soul divisive believe they can achieve perfection. Ikora's head tilts up as she considers his words. His suggestion makes sense, and it is the sort of faith a Vex would embrace, the pursuit of total perfection. A natural feeling of defiance wells up in her at the thought. She's known the underlying gnawing of expectation in words like perfection and faith, the ideals that have driven her throughout most of her life as she's morphed into countless versions of herself in pursuit of them. Ikora swipes her finger across the tablet and the recording disappears, replaced with a new set of combatants. It's never too late to reevaluate your faith, she says. I love this because it's very poignant for Ikora to talk about faith. We see time and time again throughout the series, her faith in the Traveler is shaken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going all the way back to the Destiny 2 Red War campaign, she goes to Io because that's the last place the Traveler was at before it came to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she goes there, because she wants to feel the presence of the Traveler once more. And we see her faith get shaken when Cade is killed. We see her faith shaken when the darkness comes becomes a tool, and especially from the time that Savathun gets the light onward. She's disturbed. And I think it's interesting that her and Mithrax are the ones having the conversation about faith, because when Mithrax says maybe they're throwing themselves in the line of fire for the witness because of faith, because this is how they believe they'll achieve perfection, I think that's true to a degree, because, we know that the Soul Divisive were the ones in the Black Garden making the black goop, which we now know was an attempt to recreate the veil that the witness had ordered them to do, and then tried covering its tracks. But we obviously, we put a stop to that at the end of Lightfall.
Mm-hmm.
And Mithrax, it's not so unlike him. Once upon a time, the Elixni did the same thing. They would throw themselves in the line of fire against Guardians and humanity in order to get to their great machine again, out of nothing more than blind faith. And we've seen time and time again that Mithrax and House Light only do what they do, only ally with us out of faith that, while the Traveler blessed them and has, created the Risen, the Guardians, we have to serve it. We have to ally with them. That's the only way to survive. And Mithrax is so devout and so steadfast in that he turns the tide of an entire species. So why wouldn't he automatically jump to this is about faith?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that he jumps to it so quickly, and Ikora is so hesitant to the idea. I don't think you would think it would be the other way around, but Ikora is kind of hesitant to it because Ikora doesn't have faith anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, this is before they even go in to fight the witness. We're not sure when this takes place. We're assuming this takes place before going through the portal. That's my assumption here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this takes place in the 3 days between the Vanguard being rescued and the assault on the Witness's Keep.
Mm-hmm.
Although it would make sense if it happened there too. And it's interesting to contemplate, especially when we think about the other races that are fighting alongside the Witness or doing its bidding at this point. Shadow Legion, the Hive that aren't the Lucent Hive, the Taken, the Soul Divisive. House Salvation is missing in action. Funny enough, during the during all of it, House Salvation is totally MIA.
Mm-hmm.
They are not around. I think the only time that we see any of them is in the second to last campaign mission. Is it the one where we're chasing Zavala? I want to say that there's some Fallen in that one.
Yes.
But I only know that because of the giant boss. Other than that, they've pretty much scattered, and that's where they're brought up right away by Crow at the end of the campaign. Everybody's kind of there out of faith. The Guardians are there, because, well, it's the last stand, but there's the faith that the Guardian and Crow specifically have when the final shape happens. Like, Crow gets through the portal on faith.
Mm-hmm.
That Crow's faith ultimately ends up saving an entire system. And they haven't come around to that line of thinking yet. But much in the same way we talk about Mithrax saves an entire species from existence, because we were preparing to wipe the Fallen out.
Yeah.
And it's basically been said, like, if you're not part of House Light, you're basically extinct at this point. Same with the Cabal. If you're not part of Kaido's empire, you're done. You're out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the actions of an individual like Crow, and his faith and his belief in Riven keeping her word leads us to saving not only the remainder of the Ahamkara, but leads to us, ultimately us and Crow save the universe, from the final shape. So I think it's an interesting commentary on faith and belief overall, and like how that can correspond, even beyond a game, how that can correspond to your daily life. You just have a little bit of faith.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it. I like when we get a little meta with things like that. Like, I get the sense that whoever wrote this has had like conflicting thoughts about faith in their own personal life. And like, I think that's why it resonates with me, is like, I have been very much the same way the last several years. And you'll get your faith tested at one point or another. So it's just like, what do you believe in? Kind of like, what do you believe in ultimately at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Yeah, man. This is
it's deep.
It's real deep. Not Season of the Deep.
Oh God. I think that's gonna do it for us though, Corey.
Yeah, I think that's
I don't think there's anything else.
I don't think there is anything else either. Well, then let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to this episode of Tower Casuals. Remember, you can find a new episode every Friday morning on your podcast service of choice and on YouTube. You can also check out Xbox Casuals, our Xbox podcast, on Tuesdays. Josh, thank you for your time tonight, as always. Where can we find you?
Twitter. I'm still holding it down. Josh_Finn. 2 N's, people.
Two N's. You can find me at I am Corey HD on the Twitter.
Everything.
Yeah. Everything. If you want. No pressure. No pressure. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. Like, subscribe, share, rate, and review wherever you listen. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.